Survive and Advance on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. Survive and Advance is brought to you by Replenishing Care Technologies, the future of sports medicine. To find out more about Replenishing Care, go to thegruelingtruth.net. Click on the banner. It'll take you right to their page, explains what they're about. I'm one of your co-hosts for Survive and Advance, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I want to welcome in my other co-host, a member of the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame, also a member of the 1981 National Championship Indiana Hoosiers. Help me welcome to the show, Steve Risley. How you doing, Steve?
Doing great today, Mike. Everything's wonderful in Los Angeles, sunny and beautiful and 85 degrees. It just gets kind of boring out here.
Yeah, it sounds terrible, Steve.
I need a thunderstorm, man. I'm telling you, I left Indiana a year and a half ago, and I have not heard thunder. I heard thunder over the phone talking to you one time. But I've not heard thunder or seen lightning in over a year and a half, and I tell you what, you think it's something you don't want to see, after a while you want to see it.
All right, Steve, whatever you say. We get thunderstorms daily here, usually at 7 at night after it's been 100 degrees all day. First off, before we get to our guests, I want to thank everybody for listening to Survive and Advance last month. In August, we had close to 100,000 total listens. So I want to thank everybody that listens to us on Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, on thegruelingtruth.net. Our guest today is an NFL sports agent. And from what I'm told, just by talking to some of his clients who we've interviewed in the past, and from other agents that know him, that he is one of the best in the business. Everybody help me welcome to the show, Ron Butler. How you doing, Ron?
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me on. How you guys doing?
We're doing great. And let's just start from the top. Tell us some of your background and what you did and what you were about before you became an agent.
Absolutely. So I actually, before I tapped into the agent business and, this great world of sports that we all know and love, I actually played college ball out in California at a junior college called College of Sequoias. I spent some time out there, kind of got my feet wet in terms of playing at the collegiate level. It wasn't the top of the echelon in terms of major Division I or Division II, but it gave me an opportunity to continue my playing career leaving high school. After 2 years there, I decided to go to move back home to Miami, Florida, where I currently live, and I got into coaching for about 8 years. Love coaching, high school players. I've had a lot of guys that were successful at the high school level that went on to have great college careers, first round picks, guys that are still currently playing in the NFL that I currently represent. So it's been a real different transition. You don't really hear my story a whole lot, but it was definitely a way for me to stay in the game of sports. And I love what I do.
Yeah. How hard is it to make that transition? I mean, we see all the glory and shows on TV of sports agents and how they're portrayed. I know The Rock does the one show on HBO, Ballers, and it's like a glamorous life of an agent. And I mean, is that accurately portrayed, or how difficult is it for an athlete to make that transition into becoming a sports agent? Because I mean, it seems like everybody. Hell, I would have loved to have been a sports agent. How much fun is that to go negotiate everybody else's money and get 10% of it or a percentage of it, whatever you guys get?
Right,
I mean,
right.
How glamorous is it? How hard of work do you have to put us in real life time as to what the work of a sports agent is? Because all we see is The Rock going around living in Miami and L.A., driving fancy cars and going to highfalutin parties with beautiful babes and hanging out with big athletes.
No, absolutely. I mean, honestly, the way it's portrayed in the show Ballers, just like you said, it's a glamorous lifestyle that's being portrayed. At the same time, when you're working for, these players as an agent, you're dealing with their families, you're dealing with their personal issues, you're dealing with their careers. You're that guy that they go to when things are good. You're that guy that they go to when things are bad. And a lot of that, that's portrayed in that show. It doesn't necessarily touch on, say, a day in the life of, a sports agent. I think it's more geared towards, The Rock as a financial advisor and setting up all of these deals and different things like that. So, for me personally, I deal with my guys. I have 15 active players in the NFL right now. And, you're talking about 15 different personalities that you're dealing with and that you're working for. And, you have to be up on your game because obviously this is a dog-eat-dog business. There are a lot of sharks that are out there. And, they're looking to, to hunt your clients. So I have to do, more than just, do a contract or what's expected of me in terms of negotiations. I really have to have a real relationship with my players. And, I love it. I mean, it's a genuine thing for me. And, this ultimately at the end of the day, this is what I really wanted to do in terms of my career.
So what made you
follow
want
up.
to become...
I got to follow Mike, I got to follow up. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Throw them all at me. I'm ready.
No. This is interesting. I'm into this stuff. How much control do you have over your clients? I mean, because we see them, they have all this free time, they have all this money, they have all this fame and notoriety. How much do you actually control? Do you have to try and ground these kids? I mean, or do you try and ground them, or you just kind of try and do? How do you manage these athletes who are got this unlimited credit card, this Ferrari in your driveway, this mansion, and all the stuff that's portrayed about it with being a professional athlete? How much control do you have over them?
Honestly, you have to remember at the end of the day, as an agent, you work for the client. Now, when these guys are coming out of college, and they're transitioning from college to the pros, that first check that could be for $500,000 or $1 million or whatever round that they go in, that's life-changing, money. That's money that they've never seen before, and they've never had access to. So a lot of times you're dealing with players whose pockets are burning. They're looking to, go out and spend this and spend that and not think consciously about, hey, my career could end next year and I don't have anything. So it's my job as an advisor to not only, show them examples and continue from a day-to-day standpoint, to discourage them from buying certain things or to giving people money or families and different things like that. It's my job to continue to, to pump that into them, to make them see the big picture, which is, hey, this thing could end at any time. Let me make sure that next chapter of my life, I have money available to at least start the next chapter of whatever I decide to do in terms of my career. So it's my job. I take responsibility myself in helping these guys transition so that they see the big picture. And at the end of the day, hey, if their career is over after 3 years, at least they have something to kind of fall back on before they decide to go in that next direction.
All right. Now you talked about
So I do discourage, not to cut you off, but I do discourage, especially those guys that are rookies, to stay away from the Lamborghinis, to stay away from the Rolls Royce and the big homes and all of those things initially until they have a certain amount of money that they can say, hey, you know what, financially, I'm in a good place. My financial advisors have advised me it's okay to make these certain moves. So, I mean, that's really how I operate.
And I would guess posses are a nightmare to you. When a player has his posse, that's got to be a nightmare to you.
It's really the families. It's not necessarily the posses. Like, I haven't had to deal with, say, a guy that had a big entourage of people that he deals with on a regular basis. I've had, families are, their expectations are that, hey, you know what, if my kid makes it, we've all made it, and now I need that big house. So now I want to retire. I want to be able to do certain things. But it just depends on who the family is, how, what their thought process is, and, how the player wants to handle it.
All right. So you talked before about you were a high school coach. When did you decide you wanted to become an agent? And then what's the process if somebody wants to be an NFL agent?
Well, I want to say around 2004, the big thing for me was helping guys that were in high school, have an opportunity to go play college ball. Down here in South Florida, we're kind of like the mecca of, producing NFL athletes. And, you know, you see different shows. I think they have a show that's coming on, I believe it's Stars, that LeBron James executive produced.
Yes.
And it talks
I'm
about,
looking forward to that.
Definitely looking forward to that.
That's going to be a good show.
It talks about these young kids that see, you know, the guys from their neighborhoods that have made it, that have had these successful careers in terms of college players, NFL players, and a lot of these young guys want that. You know, I think at that point in 2004, where, you know, I was taking guys around to different colleges, you know, jumping in the minivan, you know, 12 or 15 high school athletes, and, you know, searching, you know, going to the top schools, going to the, you know, the mid-major programs as well, just trying to get those guys seen, to get those guys an opportunity to not only play college ball, but to also continue their education. That was a goal for me that I set for myself, is help these guys transition over. And, you know, I had a conversation with somebody one day, and they said, hey, man, you're kind of like an agent. And I didn't really think of myself like that. But as I started to, you know, really think about it and hear different conversations and talk to different people, I realized, like, hey, you know what, I can do this. You know, this is something that I can do at a professional level. And I want to say that started for me in about 2004. In regards to, you know, what it takes to become an agent, there's a very long process that the NFLPA puts you through in terms of an exam that you have to take, you know, having to have a master's degree or at least 7 years of negotiating experience. And you have to go in and take a test with about 800 other candidates that happens once a year. So that was a part of the process. And, you know, if you pass, hey, you're good to go. You can start that business. You can, you know, go in that direction in terms of being an agent. And if you fail, you have to wait till next year to retake the exam again. And I believe it's if you fail the second time, you have to wait 5 years to take it again.
Do you have to have a law degree?
Process. No, you don't have to have a law degree. I mean, you're dealing with a lot of people that do have law degrees. You know, from a law standpoint, it's definitely good to have someone. If you're not an attorney yourself, it's definitely good to have someone on your staff that does have you know, practice law or, you know, has a law degree, because it definitely helps when it comes down to litigation.
Yeah, and I know
Sure.
that a lot of NFL players kind of keep their agent at an arm's distance. But what I have heard from you,
Right.
from the people I've spoke to, is you're a guy that, I mean, gains players' trust fairly well. And, I mean, that has to give you some sort of an advantage.
I mean, I think it gives me does it give me an advantage? I'm not gonna say that. You have a lot of agents out here that are good agents, that are really good agents, and have genuine relationships with those clients and their families. But then you do have some agents that don't really have a genuine relationship. It's all about the money. And you know, obviously in this industry, you know, you're dealing with you may come across a player that's, you know, that may be what he wants. He may not want a relationship. He may want somebody that's, hey, you know, it's strictly business. You know, negotiate my contract, and, you know, I'll see you on the next one. You do have guys that are like that. For my guys, you know, guys like Levante David and Travis Benjamin and, you know, Denzel Perryman, just to name a few, you know, we do have a very close personal relationship that we share. And, you know, it's not all about, hey, what I can do for you financially or what they can do for me in terms of, you know, financially as well. So it's a genuine situation. You know, I love these guys to death. You know, I treat them like my family, and I'm involved with their day-to-day lives and also with their careers.
Yeah, and I can tell you this.
All right.
I had Denzel on the show a couple months ago, and you couldn't ask for
Okay.
a nicer guy. I mean, he's a great guy.
Oh, yeah, man. Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. He's definitely a character as well.
Yeah. Steve?
Moving forward a little bit here, NCAA has kind of changed all their rules and regulations. They've now said that high school kids and top-tier athletes can retain agents and whatnot. How do you feel about the changes? Is that a good thing? Is it a step in a positive direction? Or is it just a total convoluted mess that the NCAA keeps building on?
I mean, honestly, when I saw that, when the NCAA ruled on it, my first response was, wow, this could be a problem. Obviously when you're dealing with guys that have been playing, especially at a high level in terms of AAU, being part of these top programs on the AAU circuit, you're talking about kids that have been, since 11 or 12 years old, they're being courted. So now what the NCAA is saying is, hey, we'll allow these elite players to hire agents. I believe it's coming out of high school.
Yeah.
And I just thought, man, like coming out of high school, I remember myself coming out of high school and I was saying, hey, you know what? Like, I just want to play ball. But now you're dealing with, adults who look to cash in on these players. You're looking at the shoe brands, the major shoe brands that want to cash in on these players. They see the dollar signs. So I think the NCAA is probably saying, okay, to eliminate any more, toxic situations in regards to what we saw last year or the last 2 years with, I think it was Adidas and the Louisville program with Patino and those guys. Yeah. I think what they're saying now is, okay, here's a way that we can kind of control it and govern it and, allow these guys to potentially, especially the superstars who are going to be one and done anyway, we can go ahead and have that process begin early. But I personally, my personal view on it is I think that's going to be a mess. That's just my personal view.
Well, it's going to be a mess because they didn't even ask the NBA about it. And the NBA, I would think, the NBA's got to love this. You got to play 1 year of college basketball because you kind of vet the players for the NBA because we all know that in the past, most 18-year-olds that came out of high school didn't turn into LeBron James or Moses Malone or Kobe Bryant. I mean, most of these guys were bust.
Right.
So this is a way for the NBA to vet their players through college basketball. And in the end, college basketball is all about, or the NCAA is all about the NCAA making money. I don't think they're really worried about the kids. I think this is more putting lipstick on a pig than anything else.
I like that. I agree.
Now, Steve.
I agree. I think it's definitely going to be a mess.
Yeah, and Steve, you'll get the next question because actually I think you went to the prom with a pig with lipstick on, didn't you, since you lived in Indiana?
Yeah. I just don't see the correlation really between granting access to agents to high school kids and what I don't like is the breakdown of the top tier. Only certain athletes, the top 100 athletes rated by USA Basketball or something like that, can even retain agency. And so how do you determine that? How do you say, everybody always said Michael Jordan got cut from his freshman team and was not that great of a high school player. And by the time he blossomed, he was a good player in college, obviously, but he turned into the superstar in the NBA. And here's a kid who may have fallen out of that top 100 at some point when agency is offered at the top 100. I mean, I don't see how this correlates to saving anything or doing anything to stop what I think is the problem is AAU and the shoe companies just continuing to underhand money and buy these kids at a young age and going to their families to sign these kids on and get them involved in their shoe contracts from the get-go. I don't see the correlation there at all.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, and we move on to the NFL, which I know you have a huge vested interest in. When we look at the NFL seems to be a different controversy every week. Well, a different controversy plus the same controversy for the last 3 years with Colin Kaepernick, which we know Nike now signed him to a deal and everybody's freaking out both ways. I'm getting sick of hearing about it. But if you had a player that came to you and asked you, he said, hey, I really believe in what Colin Kaepernick and these other guys are doing to protest police brutality, which a lot of America
Right.
doesn't understand. It's police brutality. It's not to protest soldiers or anything else.
Right.
What would you tell him?
Well, it's my job to advise, each one of my clients in terms of not only this issue, but other issues as well. This particular issue being as publicized as it is, obviously dealing with, the NFL, but also dealing with your own current team that you're employed by. I would have to let those guys know, hey, listen, at the end of the day, you have a right as a citizen. You have a right in terms of your platform, but just understand that, obviously I support you, but at the end of the day, if there can be consequences and repercussions to your actions based on how you go about protesting. And I have to let a player know that, because at the end of the day, if something was to happen, say, for example, the owner of that team or the coach of that team is not happy about, him protesting during the game, obviously there's a possibility of him being released, and he may not be picked back up by any other organization. And so he has to be forewarned that can potentially happen. So I would support him. At the same time, I would also educate him on potentially what the consequences could be if he chose to do that. So, I mean, that's the best in terms of being an agent. I think that's the best way of going about it. I don't think you tell a guy, hey, no, you can't do it, or, flat out, hey, yes, you can do it. You just, you give him the plus and minuses of what could potentially happen if you do this. So that's my view. That's how I would approach it. Have I had to have that conversation? No, I haven't had to over the last year or two, but I'm definitely prepared if that question was asked by one of my clients.
Are you going to try and represent high school athletes coming out? Are you going to try and go that route and go ahead and do that? Or do you have to be accredited by the NCAA as well as the NBA or NFL or any of the pro sports?
Well, NBA and NFL are different in terms of being licensed to or certified to represent athletes. So obviously the NFL's, I believe, is probably the hardest in terms of just being qualified. In terms of experience, in terms of just dealing with players, understanding the business, understanding the CBA. With the NFL, for a while, it was much more easier to get certified. I believe over the last 2 or 3 years, they've made it a lot more difficult in terms of representing players in the NBA. Not saying that you can't do it or that I won't do it. I'm not certified as an NBA agent, but at the end of the day, if I was, I would definitely say, hey, let me throw my hat in there, especially if you're dealing with lottery picks or, first round picks. And I would definitely throw my hat in there, but I would also be conscious in terms of, these rules and things that the NCAA has passed, and understand that, this could potentially be an issue, and but as an agent, especially in the NFL, there are certain rules that we have to follow, and guidelines, but at the end of the day, we're dealing with college players transitioning to the NFL. So we're talking about guys that are becoming pros. In terms of basketball, you're talking about kids that are 18 years old, 17 years old that are hiring agents. There's, after their senior year, like that's a little different. That's a little different, especially when you're getting recruited by, all of these major basketball programs and potentially being able to go overseas and play professionally and then coming back. I think the basketball circuit is just so much different from the NFL. I just think it's a lot different, So that's my take on it.
All right. So I know you said you have 15 clients. How do you divide your time amongst the clients?
Honestly, I probably talk to at least half of them on a daily basis. whether it's a phone call, whether it's a text message, whether it's a group chat. I have a group chat with my clients that, we're all in the group chat together. We become, one team. And I think that definitely benefits in terms of communication. So a guy can't say, hey, I don't talk to my agent. My agent doesn't reach out at all. But because you do have some agents that don't talk to their players at all until it's time to negotiate a new contract. And, I'm not that type of guy. If from the day that I come in and I sit in your living room with your family and I tell you I'm going to be there, then that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be there. And I'm a man of my word. And, that's ultimately from a communication standpoint. That's how I operate.
Steve?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm listening. It is a lot. Taking it to the next level, talk a little bit about this whole controversy about paying athletes in college. As an agent, how does that look to you? What does that look like to you? I mean, if you're involved with a player who's in college and you're an agent for him, or how is this whole thing manifesting from your point of view in terms of the debate between whether athletes should be paid or not?
Well, for one, I think that agents shouldn't be paying players in college. That's my my first point that I want to make. I think that the NCAA and those particular programs, wherever those players are currently enrolled and are playing for, they should be the ones that are actually taking care of these players. I mean, obviously they're on scholarship. They're there. Their scholarship is quote unquote worth money. But at the end of the day, these guys don't have time to work. They don't have time to have a job. So, once they pay for their apartments and they buy a little bit of food, they pay a cell phone bill or buy a pair of sneakers, then they're probably left with about $50 to last them for the rest of the month. So you're talking about a business that's making billions of dollars off of these players and potentially not being able to, go out and have a movie date, with a student, another student. I mean, I think that's tough, especially with, the guys are bringing in, mega dollars for these programs. So I think it's the NCAA's job, and I think it's that particular collegiate organization or collegiate team to take care of that player. That's my thoughts. But what's your guys' view? How do you guys feel about that?
I think that I was at Indiana State in the late '80s, and we had guys on teams that couldn't afford a pizza. I mean, the cafeteria closed at like 5 or 6 o'clock on a Friday, a Saturday, and a Sunday. After that, they didn't have money to do anything. And a lot of people forget, you may be giving this kid a scholarship, but this kid may come from nothing, whether he's black or white. His family might be poor, and they can't afford to send him $20, $30 a week even. And you got a lot of these kids. I mean, we've seen kids before that were living in their cars that had scholarships.
Right.
So when you look at it, they have to be beholden to take care of these kids. Because I've got a son that's a senior right now, another son that's a sophomore. And if they go play college football somewhere or baseball, I expect where they go for them to be taken care of. And I don't mean taken care of by like we give them a brand new car. I just mean taken care of to make sure that they have the basic necessities of life. And right now they don't. And my biggest concern is they're never going to pay these players because they cook their books. They spend all this money on brand new facilities that are better than a lot of college basketball or NFL teams or NBA teams have. And they make it look like they're losing money. Woe is me, but we just spent $30 million on a new practice facility. Why can't we give some of that money to the kids? And I know Steve has what I think is a great idea on how to do this and to make sure that kids are getting their degree.
Okay.
Steve,
let me hear your idea on that.
All right. Well, first off, I played college from 77 to 81. And in that point in time, before the explosion of March Madness came along at Indiana, and we won a national championship in 1981, I genuinely felt at that point in time the value of my scholarship was equivalent to what, when I look back, I didn't think anything of it then. All I knew was I was playing basketball on a great team, and we were winning games, and we won national championships. I didn't think anything about the money aspect of it whatsoever. But, I felt that the value of the scholarship I got in Indiana was equal to the amount of money that the university brought in, because it was not nearly the television money brought in, the shoe money that's being brought in now, the donations and all that's coming in. That's exploded. The NCAA is a marketing genius, despite all their other flaws. They are very good at marketing. They're bringing in money left and right. So I felt at that point in time the money was fine. And there still are certain non-revenue-based sports where your scholarship is a good form of pay or remuneration for services you're giving back to the university. I mean, when you're talking about swimming, lacrosse, sports that aren't what we call revenue-generating sports, to invest a scholarship into that athlete, it's fair play. That's about what they bring back in. They're kind of liability sports, they generally feed from the basketball programs or the football programs or the baseball programs to fund the rest of the Title IX sports. Make sure everybody's included and everybody gets a fair shot. But I think for the revenue-generating sports, I think it's become a situation now to where the amount of profit that's being made with the athletes being the engine that drives everything, is all of a sudden now gotten way out of balance. Now, first off, I think there should be, college student athletes are not allowed, scholarship athletes are not allowed to work or generate income while they're on scholarship during the seasons and during the school year. There needs to be a daily fee or a lifestyle fund or something so the kids can go get a tank of gas, get a pizza, pay their cell phone bill. I mean, live a somewhat normal life, because it almost puts the athletes at a disadvantage right off the bat, because they can't go do work study, or they can't go get a job at the gas station and pump gas.
They just don't have the time. They just don't have the
they don't have the time, and they're not allowed to. Even if they had the time, they're not allowed to by the NCAA. So they're not allowed to. So then all of a sudden now in these revenue-generating sports, you're taking in, a significant amount of money. And like Mike said, they cook their books. They hide a lot of it. But that number of $1 billion a year, the profit that they have in the banks, NCAA, from what I've been told by other people, that's minuscule to what they actually have. But they bury a lot of that too. So rather than see a pay-for-play thing, what I would like to see is a way to find a balance to do what I call a little bit of a profit-sharing deal, where we take athletes and we dangle a carrot in front of them. And we take, say, it's an arbitrary amount of money, and I'll just use $5,000. I don't know if that's the right economic value or not, but people would figure that out. But for your revenue-generating sports, the people that are producing the money and bringing it in, and they're playing in the big sports that are drawing all the income back into the university and the NCAA, you sit there and you say, okay, for every year that you progress toward your degree, you take, it's 15 hours generally. You need to take a semester, 30 hours a year you need to get to graduate with 120 hours in a 4-year degree. A lot of athletes take a red shirt and they do it over 5 years, so it spreads it out. But every year you do the required number of credits to graduate toward your degree. We put an amount of money in a money market CD for you. And it's in your name. It's there. We're managing it. The interest, everything bears out. It's all yours. And as you progress every year toward that degree, we put another arbitrary amount of money into the same amount. So let's say it's $5,000. At the end of 4 years, Steve Risley, who wasn't an NBA prospect, wasn't going to play professional basketball beyond, I graduated with my degree, and all of a sudden now I'm given a check for $20,000. And it's there for me to start a business, buy a home, purchase a car, pay off any other debts, do whatever I want to do with it. Some will take it and mismanage it. But hopefully the goal there is you've gotten your degree now and you've got some education, and you've gone out now and you have an idea of what this $20,000 is worth to you as being a part of an opportunity for you to start a career right off the bat. And it's kind of a thank you above and beyond what the value of your scholarship is, because they'll tell you a scholarship's worth $50,000. That's not really true, because the universities own the dorms. They're just giving you a room. They're not paying the rent for you. They own the dorms. They own the professors.
Right.
So all this $50,000 is what it would cost, what they charge as a fee for normal students to go to college. But that's not what it's costing. $50,000 is not what the university's paying for any student athlete through college. All right, like I said,
Right.
they own the dorms. The teachers are already employed. Everything's already there. The textbooks are already there, and so it's really a lot less than the $50,000 the university's actually spitting out to put Steve Risley through 4 years at Indiana University. So I think the dangling carrot theory would be something that really should be explored. Don't give it to them day by day or year by year.
I like that.
Give them a stipend.
I like that.
Give them a stipend. Give them something to live on weekly so they can just, be a normal student athlete. Because I'll tell you,
Right.
I was fortunate enough that I had parents that could support me a little bit. And, we had good jobs and were able to bank money in the summer. But there were athletes that didn't have that luxury, and they were scraping for pennies, just to get gas in their car or get their car repaired, or they basically had to eat dorm food. They couldn't go out and order a pizza, while everybody else in the dorms ordering pizzas, and they were so broke they couldn't order a pizza, and they couldn't go out and do anything to get the money legally. So give them a stipend. I mean, every scholarship athlete should get a stipend, a daily allowance,
Get a stipend
to function on. That's all
I like
that.
That's a smart idea. That's a good idea.
Then you take this profit sharing plan, you throw it out there and say, it may vary based on the profitability of everything, but we don't give it to you. We put it in a money market CD. And if you graduate, you get the money. If you don't graduate,
Right.
the money goes back into the general scholarship fund to be used for other student athletes. And it's reused and recycled. So it dangles the carrot out there to work his butt off a little bit more, to get his degree and to work a little bit harder in the classroom. And we talked to Rashad McCann. So he just had a book come out, The Plantation Education. I don't know if you've looked at it or heard anything about it or not, but
I've heard of it.
He tells a story.
I haven't had a chance to read it, but I've heard of it.
I read it.
Book.
It's a great book. I read it thoroughly, and we talked to Rashad on the show, and we did a lot of listens, a lot of people, and he had some great insight into the forced type of education that universities are throwing on kids these days. When I went to college, I had to go to drop an ad. I had to pick my own classes. I had to go fight tooth and nail, stand in line to try and get in a class that was closed. It was class open at 7 in the morning or 3 in the afternoon. Well, I couldn't take the 3 o'clock class because then we had basketball practice. So I had to fight to get in the 7 o'clock class. But now Rashad he went to North Carolina, and he walks in and they hand him a schedule. He's already enrolled in a curriculum. Major's been chosen for him. I mean, that's so wrong. That's so wrong. And that's the problem with this whole process, is that we're not teaching these kids to fish. We're giving them a fish. Give a kid a fish, feed him for a day. Teach a kid a fish.
Right.
Teach a kid to fish, feed him for a lifetime. The universities have stopped teaching these kids to fish. So, but also on top of that, the profitability of the universities, donor money coming in, alumni money coming in, individual, Big Ten, all these Big Tens, SEC, they're all signing their own television deals, their own contracts. I mean, the money is just unbelievably phenomenal. And you got coaches getting paid millions of dollars a year.
Millions.
You got
millions.
And you've got these players who are just out there and who again, are the engine that's driving the whole train. And they're told, well, you get your scholarship, be happy. Well, that was good in 1981, when the money wasn't there. But that's not good anymore. And the NCAA just doesn't want to do that. And they take these approaches like allowing athletes to get representation by agents. And they kind of try and pass that off as like, well, we're trying to work toward that direction and move to that. What they're really trying to do is fend off the argument that athletes should be part of the profit sharing. I don't want to use pay. I don't want to use compensation. I want to use profit sharing because they are part of the plan that brings profit to the NCAA and to these universities and these athletic programs. And they should be part of the profit sharing program. So that's my thought.
Makes sense to me. Definitely makes sense to me. I like that approach.
All right, so Ron, why don't you tell us, I think you work at a new company now or a part owner. You want to tell us about where you're at now?
Yeah, I'm part owner of a company now. It's called Epic Agents. We're based out of South Florida. Definitely a situation that I'm excited about. My guys are excited about it. Working with a group of guys that obviously hungry in terms of the industry, and are going to, continue to do good business, negotiate good deals, and sign the right players. So definitely looking forward to that. And yeah, catch our website. It's called epicagents.com. Go on there and check that out. You got some cool, neat stuff on there. But at the end of the day, it's all about representing the players the right way, and just making sure that we do good business.
All right, Steve, you got any final questions for
Ron? No, really, none that I can think of, unless you want to talk a little bit about the Kaepernick situation that's just occurred. Do you have any opinions on that, or do you really want to talk about it to any degree?
I mean, I like the way Nike decided to launch, just the whole advertisement in terms of their 30 years, in the industry, and they use Kaepernick and, his views. And, I think you have a lot of people that are happy with it. I think you have a lot of people that aren't too happy with it. But a lot of people don't know that Kaepernick was being paid by Nike the whole time, and he was a Nike athlete. And I think they used this. This was the perfect approach. I think that obviously they're catching a little bit of heat for it. I saw their stock went down a little bit, but Nike is Nike, man. They're always going to be here. They're always looking at a way to change the game, and I think they're probably one of the most well-respected brands, apparel brands, in the business. So, I mean, I commend them for what they've done.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I did not know that Nike was paying Kaepernick the whole time, but that makes me respect them a lot more, simply because they stuck to their values, and they stuck to Colin's values, and they stuck with Colin as a player and a client. And it makes me think higher of Nike for doing that. I know there's a lot of controversy over what he's doing, whether it's the right place. Technically, he's breaking no rules. He's breaking no laws, breaking no rules. I think a lot of people's argument is they don't like the way he's approaching it. And I might personally not wish it was a different way, but you have to take the path that gets you the most attention if you're going to take a stand the way that he's taking a stand. And this certainly has got him his attention. But I think in the long run, what Nike did is going to be a very good thing, because in this country, we disdain our villains, and we don't like our villains. But then all of a sudden, somewhere down the road, this country is a very forgiving country, and our villains often become our heroes. And I think there's somewhere down the road where Colin Kaepernick is no longer going to be looked at as a villain, but looked at more as an agent of change. Somebody who brought about change in some way, and stayed true to his commitments and stayed true to that. And I love the fact that Nike jumped on board, so we stayed true to Colin Kaepernick. So I think in the long run, Nike will take a little bit of a bump right now because of the initial reflux and social media and things like that. It's so easy to downgrade and bash anybody there. But I think in the long run, when this all plays itself out and Colin Kaepernick's looked upon more as a revolutionary rather than a dissident, and Nike stood by him the whole time, I think in the long run it's marketing genius on Nike's part. And I'm very proud of them.
Definitely.
And I did not know this, for staying with Kaepernick the whole way through. Everybody else bailed on him.
Right.
The NFL bailed on him.
Yeah.
All of their sponsors bailed on him. And Nike didn't even advertise that they were staying with him. Maybe they did it because they didn't really want to advertise.
Nobody knew.
It.
Yeah.
Nobody knew. I did not know that they were continuing to stay. Nobody knew. But Nike's been notorious for that at all. They stayed with Tiger Woods when he was going through his situation. They stayed true to a lot of their athletes along the way. So I think
it's branding. I think it's genius in terms of just the branding side of it. And now they're coming out with doing like his own line under the Nike brand or something like that. I think I heard that. Is that accurate?
I'd heard rumors to that, but I've not followed up on that to any degree yet. But I'm sure they will.
T-shirts and everything else.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I definitely think that you need. I think athletes should be able to use their platforms. especially the way that the world is, the country is so divided, and we're talking about, social issues, we're talking about race issues, different things like that. I think that, it's got to be broken down all the way in order for things to in order for things to turn into a positive note. I think that has to happen. And I think that you're looking at a guy, basically his quote says, sacrifice everything. I forgot the quote, but basically he sacrificed,
even if it means sacrificing everything.
Right.
And I think that he sacrificed his whole career for something that he believed in. And to do that, especially with just the way that the country is so divided and, politics and different things like that, I just think that it was genius on Nike's part. But I think even with Colin and how he's just conducted himself as a professional, even when things got bad, he still stood by what he believed in. So I think that it shows the younger generation that, hey, you know what, if there's a change that needs to be made, if I have to sacrifice something, it's okay, especially if it's gonna make a change. And I think it's very important to have guys that are leaders. I look at Colin Kaepernick now as a leader, who has a vision, and it is not a black thing. It's not a white thing. It's not a color thing. It's a people thing. And I think that, I commend him on how he's conducted himself. And I commend Nike for, obviously, like you guys said, they stuck by him. And, even if they took something on the chin, they took one on the chin, hey, we'll take it on the chin. But, 6 months from now, you guys are going to, you're going to be buying this product, and you're going to continue to buy this product, and our stocks are going to go back up. So, I commend them. I commend them both. I definitely do.
Yeah, and
here's
the racial
here's
divide is caused by the media. They want the racial divide because it's good for their numbers. If you look at these people, it was you go on Facebook now, and there's a guy by the name of Graham Allen from something called Rant Nation on CRTV, and the guy's an absolute moron. He was in the Marines, which, I'm sorry, he's still a moron. You're a moron whether you're a Marine or not. And he's going off on all this, talking about how, it disrespects the troops. When Colin Kaepernick has obviously said multiple times it wasn't. I know you represent NFL athletes that probably were giving back to their community in the offseason, and you got this guy talking about where was Colin Kaepernick in the offseason. And when you go and you just put in Colin Kaepernick charities, you come up with like 1,000 stories of Colin Kaepernick giving money to different places, showing up, lending a hand. It is so pathetic that, and I'm white, but white people a lot of times are stupid, because when you go on YouTube and you punch in police brutality, I hate to tell people this, but half them people getting their ass kicked are white. I mean, and they don't understand that this is not about race. It's about police brutality, which maybe 90% of cops are great, but if 10% are bad, we've got a huge problem. And there's no other way. There's no other way this could have blown up bigger than the way he did it. And my dad was in the military, served during the Vietnam era, and he always told me this: I never went and fought, so somebody would be told what they had to do. I mean, we live in a country that's supposed to be free. North Korea is a country where, they'll shoot you if you don't stand for the national anthem. And in the end, I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. I don't support Trump. I didn't support Clinton. What I support is this: if what I am doing or what you are doing has no effect on me or anybody else, why should I care what the hell you're doing?
That's a good point. That's a very good point.
I mean, because in the end, this country, I've read a lot of stuff on Thomas Jefferson and the Founding Fathers, who did a lot of great things, but it's still, the Constitution was all men were created equal, but they weren't. But, I mean, and that's a problem. but at some point, people need to realize that we're being played against each other. You know, they get a white person mad against a black person. They have them fight. And at the same time, our government is doing stuff on both sides that would completely blow your mind. But we're so caught up in stuff that doesn't matter. It's like the magician. You know, he makes a commotion over here, and then all of a sudden, you know, the quarter comes out of your ear because you weren't paying attention to what was really going on.
What
So
was
it's
really
all
happening.
smoke and mirrors.
Right.
Yeah,
Illusion.
it's all smoke and mirrors.
It's all an illusion. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But, Steve, I interrupted you, Steve, just because I never get to.
Well,
go ahead.
That's okay. No, I just thought the interesting point I wanted to make before we got off there is that what's interesting about this whole thing is that Nike did this. This came out and supported Kaepernick, but Nike also is the official supplier of the NFL. They supply the uniforms. They supply all the gear.
Yeah, which can
all
get real interesting.
I mean, yeah, it's going to get real interesting here because I'm sure, you know, there's always that talk of the collusion of the NFL to keep Kaepernick out and the battle they're having with this whole thing and the mess that they think Kaepernick has caused. But yet here's Nike, who has got the contract to supply uniforms, gear, you know, paraphernalia, shirts, everything. And they kind of just slapped it right in the NFL's face that we support Colin Kaepernick and we look at him as a champion, not as a GOAT. So that's going to play out big too with the NFL and see how that comes out.
This is, guys, this is necessary not only for our country, not only for sports, but it's necessary for people to understand that, hey, you know what? This isn't about our flag. This isn't about our troops. Okay, this is about what's right and what's wrong. And I believe that the other day when the ad came out about Colin, the NFL released a statement that actually showed support, you know, and I think that this is, you know, it's necessary. You have a brand that's the official sponsor of the NFL that's saying, hey, this is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. If we can make, you know, a sacrifice, if we can take a punch to a blow to the chin, you know, NFL, like, you guys should do it as well. You guys should figure this whole thing out as well. And I commend them on their approach. And I just think it's necessary. It's necessary for the game, and it's necessary for all sports.
All right, Ron, we want to thank you for coming on. We'd love to have you on again sometime if you want.
No, absolutely, man. You guys are great. You guys ask all the right questions, and you know, your show is doing pretty well. Your show is doing very well. I'm not gonna say pretty well. It's doing very well. So I would.
This last month we had like 4 million people total on the website. I went and I looked at this Graham Allen, and on CRTV, he gets like 1.5 million. So anybody out there, and I sent a message to him about 5 minutes ago. Graham Allen, who likes to run his mouth and look like a complete fool and pander to the lowest common denominator, if he wants to come on this show and debate the Colin Kaepernick situation with me, I would love to take his ass to school. So, Graham Allen, if you're out there and you want to come on this show, you can bring your ass on down and we'll have this debate.
I hear that.
Instead of you sitting in your car talking to a camera, you can actually come on here and talk to somebody else who can call you on your BS lies and all your made-up crap that you spread to 1 million people with your dumbass videos. So if you want Graham Allen, you're more than welcome here. All right, guys.
Ron. Hey, Ron.
I love it. I love it.
Ron, sorry, we didn't give Mike his Valium this morning, so we didn't call
I need Valium for it. Valium wouldn't help me. Come on.
I love it.
You know, since I stopped coaching arena football like 4 or 5 years ago, I don't have anybody to take this abuse out on. So I need Graham Allen to bring his ass on this show because he's a loudmouth idiot. All right, but other than that, we're going to go ahead and wrap the show up. I want to remind everybody that later today, 6 o'clock Eastern, we'll have our first edition of the Cincinnati Bengals weekly show with myself, former Cincinnati Bengal linebacker Joe Kelly, number 58, started in the Super Bowl 23, played over a decade in the NFL. And then tonight at 9 o'clock, we'll have the Canadian Football League weekly pick'em show with myself, Brian Schmidt, and Robert Drummond, who's a 4-time CFL Grey Cup champion. So make sure you check all of those shows out. You can hear all of our shows now on Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher. Wherever you find sports podcasts, you'll find The Grueling Truth. So for Steve Risley, Ron Butler, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.